There's this golden rule in economics that we all kind of take for granted. If a country wants to grow, it has to export. This one idea has pretty much shaped global trade for decades. But what if I told you that for some countries, this rule isn't just wrong, but completely backward? We're about to dive into a case study where the data tells a much, much different story.
Okay, let's dive into this. On the surface, it just feels like pure common sense, doesn't it? Economists, policymakers, they all treat it like gospel. More exports means more money, more jobs, more growth. It's the standard playbook for how a nation gets rich. But what if there's a huge flaw in that playbook? What if it's not about how much you sell, but what you're selling?
So this big idea actually has a fancy name, the export-led growth hypothesis. It's really a cornerstone of modern economics, with roots that go all the way back to thinkers like Adam Smith. And the logic is really simple, really powerful. You get rich by figuring out what you make best and then selling it to the rest of the world. And look, there are some really solid reasons why this theory is so popular. For starters, exporting brings in that all-important foreign cash so you can buy cool new technology. It also forces your local companies to step up their game and get more efficient. And on top of all that, you get these great ripple effects, like learning new skills and better ways of making things. So on paper, it looks like a perfect engine for growth. So to really put this theory to the test, we're going to look at a fascinating study on Pakistan by Mohammad Zahir Faridi. Now, why Pakistan? Well, because its economy is so deeply rooted in agriculture, it's basically the perfect real-world lab to see if this textbook theory actually works in practice. And whoa, take a look at this. It really paints a clear picture. During the time of the study, things like textiles and food, which are both tied directly to farming, made up a massive 2/3 of everything Pakistan sold to the world. This wasn't just some side hustle. This was the economy. And here's what makes this study so powerful. We're not just looking at a snapshot of a year or two. The researchers analyzed data across a huge 36-year time span. You absolutely need that kind of long view to spot the real, deep-down trends and not just get fooled by a temporary economic blip. Now, to do this, the study used some pretty heavy-duty statistical tools. We'll skip all the jargon, but the goal was actually super simple. They wanted to prove that the link between exports and growth was the real deal, not just some random coincidence. They were digging for a genuine cause and effect relationship. So, this brings us to the moment of truth. After all that work, after sifting through 36 years of economic data, what was the real story? What was the actual connection between Pakistan's exports and its economy? Well, the answer turned out to be, let's just say, a little complicated and honestly pretty shocking. Okay, first, the part that made perfect sense. The data showed that when Pakistan exported more stuff that wasn't from agriculture, things like machinery or other manufactured goods, the economy grew. This fits that export-led growth idea perfectly. So far, so good, no surprises there. But here comes the twist. When the researchers isolated the agricultural exports, the very foundation of the country's export strategy, they found the exact opposite. More agricultural exports were linked to, less economic growth. A straight-up negative relationship. And they even put a number on it. The study found that for every 1% increase in agricultural exports, the country's long-term GDP actually went down by 0.14%. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The very sector that was supposed to be the engine of growth was, over the long run, actually pulling the whole economy backward, just a little bit. It's completely counterintuitive. Right, so your brain is probably scrambling right now, asking how on earth is that possible? How can selling more stuff to other countries actually make you poorer? It feels like it breaks the laws of economics. But the answer isn't about if you export. It's all about what you export. So here's the secret. It all comes down to the difference between selling raw materials versus selling finished products. Think of it like this. Pakistan was selling huge amounts of raw stuff, like raw cotton, which doesn't fetch a very high price on the world market. But if you take that same cotton and turn it into a finished t-shirt, well, that sells for a whole lot more. It's the classic difference between selling the ingredients and selling the finished cake. And that right there is the big aha moment of this whole thing. That old simple idea that all exports are good is just, it's too simple. It's the type of export that really moves the needle. High-value manufactured goods can push an economy forward, but relying too much on low-value raw materials can actually hold it back. So what's the solution? Well, based on these findings, the study laid out a really clear 3-step game plan. First, focus on selling more of those non-agricultural goods.
Second, and this is the big one, stop just shipping out raw farm goods. Instead, add value by turning them into finished products right there at home. And third, you've got to build the local industries that can actually do that processing.
When you get right down to it, this whole case study is a powerful reminder to always challenge our assumptions, especially with data. If a rule as basic as more exports are always good has this huge catch, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other common sense economic ideas might be overdue for a serious rethink? That's a huge question for any country trying to build a stronger future.